there is, of course, a Polish ambassador in Dublin. Yeah.
What's your ambassador saying about all this awful hate crime that's going on? Are you in contact with him at all?
Yeah. Well, I'm in contact actually with the Consul General in Edinburgh, who is a person that deals directly with Northern Ireland, is responsible for Northern Ireland. So they're very concerned about the developments in recent times, and the news has travelled.
Really?
I mean, now the news has travelled because the other day I received 2 or 3 phone calls from Poland.
You see, this is
from news agencies. I mean, who have picked up on the story
and wanted to interview you.
And did interview me. I mean, that's not good for Northern Ireland. I mean, this news is not good.
No,
because we're sending out an extremely bad message to a very, very large part of the European Union, a very large country within the European Union, and the sixth largest member.
And the awful thing is that this has been perpetrated by a minority of thugs.
Oh yeah, I mean, absolutely, and that is exactly what is going on. I mean, these are lawless individuals who are running around. They don't seem to have be under anybody's influence or control. And it seems as if there is a leadership deficit in the areas concerned, particularly in East and North Belfast.
What's Will Kerr and his PSNI people doing about it? You had a meeting with them this week.
Well, I mean, police, of course, have to work on the basis of evidence and to try and get the perpetrators of these hate crimes brought to justice. So that's a difficult challenge. I mean, I think that the police are doing their best to actually try and sort this particular problem out. He was very proactive the other day. He convened a very large meeting in the City Hall in Belfast, which I attended and spoke at. And the room was filled, with representatives from community, church, political, and so on.
What are the politicians saying about it?
Well, the politicians are, they're just expressing basically their condemnation of it. But I think there hasn't been enough heard, if you like, from the political leaders. Now, I'm going to Stormont today, and I'm meeting the Deputy First Minister at 12:30. So I'll be meeting him. He has asked to see me. I'm going there to discuss the issue. I really want some initiative to come from government.
Needs to come
in relation. Well, I think we can't wait basically to think that this will stop and that something is going to happen. We need to make things happen.
Absolutely.
We need to, in fact, actually be proactive and to develop a program. You know, what I'm thinking of, Rowan, is I'm thinking of a reactivation of the Unite Against Hate campaign, which went from 2009 to 2012.
Was that trade union orchestrated?
No, it wasn't.
Where did that come from?
No, well, it came from, I was responsible partly for it myself. It came about after the serious disturbance that took place after Poland, a Northern Ireland match took place, football match took place in 2009. That was in the European qualifying. And because of the serious situation that developed and the Polish homes that were attacked in the aftermath of that particular batch, I took the initiative at the time to talk to the Assistant Chief Constable Duncan McCausland. And he, in fact, actually brought a number of people together, including myself and people from the Polish community, people from other organisations like the Equality Commission and the Community Relations Council and the Housing Executive and so on. And a strategy was put together, and this organisation, Unite Against Hate, was established.
So how do we reactivate that?
Well, it requires funding. So if government funding had to come and had partly from, my apology.
You take your time. Just switch it off and keep talking. Just kill it. Yeah, that's good.
Funding had to come from OFM-DFM.
What's OFM-DFM?
The Office of First and Deputy First Minister.
Yeah.
So what I hope to do today is to, in fact, actually talk to to the Deputy First Minister and to seek his support for such an initiative to be maybe put in place.
What would you do if you got the funding? You'd put an officer in place to orchestrate
I think, in fact, actually, there needs to be a strategy put together, a program put together that is going to, in fact, try to penetrate, if you like, the communities that are engaged in this particular activity, to see what can be done to stop it and to try to bring that influence right into the community. And you can only do that basically by having a proper strategy. And that takes time, it takes money, and it takes effort.
But already, you know, touch wood, we haven't had anything in this last 24, 48 hours. Maybe the raised profile already is having an effect.
Well, I think, in fact, actually, you know, we can't just sit around and wait for the next one to happen.
But Will Kerr is saying he's expecting charges to be brought within the next few weeks.
Well, I'm delighted to hear that, if that is the case, and that the people that have been responsible for this are brought to book. There's also, I think, a big education that needs to be engaged in, where people need to be educated about Poland and about this thing of.
You see, there persists this awfulness, and I've heard it in this town. You know, Europe is a bad thing. I heard it in this room yesterday.
Yeah.
The studio. Europe is a bad thing because it's allowing foreigners to come in and take our jobs.
Yes.
I heard in Dublin from a Polish man who worked in a mushroom farm up here in Northern Ireland that he was paid buttons. There are still abuses of the process, and there are still attitudes which are giving succor to that abuse.
Yes, I mean, you're talking about employment sort of issues. Yes, I mean, you know, there will always be people out there, Rowan, and we have to be wary of this, that will exploit vulnerable people who come here with maybe not a very high standard of education, maybe not with language, not being able to follow the skills that maybe they already have because of the language barriers that exist. But just when you do talk about employment there, I mean, one of the particular things that, you know, maybe precipitated some of this was that there is a big refurbishment of a major ship, a Norwegian ship in Harland and Wolff, that required very skilled engineers to be brought in from Gdansk in Poland. Now,
where they know a thing or two about ships.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is that what has happened in Northern Ireland is that we have lost those skills because our shipbuilding industry has gone a long time ago. And those skills are either, people with them are either retired, dead, or whatever, but they haven't been passed down to another generation. So the company had no option but to go and bring those skills in. And in fact, right now, I mean, I can tell you that there are many companies around Northern Ireland who are surviving because of the skills that they were able to get in places like Poland, and were not actually here. And those particular companies are being kept going, and would close down if they hadn't got them.
Jerome, on a human level, what is all of this awfulness doing to the spirit of the good and decent Polish people that you represent?
Well, I mean, they are very perturbed, and you know, for many of those that are directly affected, they you know, they are gravely affected by what is happening. They are very confused. They don't know why it's happening. And don't understand this, and quite right. And I'm very concerned about them. Obviously, some will be considering their positions to maybe maybe move away, to move to somewhere else, or to move back to Poland or whatever. But the fact is, remember this: that when they do, and if this happens, they're going to be taking a very negative story back with them. You know, and I mean, you know, we should be aware. But maybe there are people out there who don't care. You know,
hold your thought a moment, if you would, because Sean, I think I'm moved to say that after this interview, we're about 10 minutes away from the end of it now. We're going to play the European national anthem that you've got there, Beethoven's Ninth, the Ode to Joy.
Yes, Ode to Joy,
as a way of saying to the bad people, this is what we're about. We are European and proud of it, and we're loved to have our Polish neighbours here with us. And
yes, absolutely.
Clearly. What's Will Kerr saying to you quietly, you know, away from the cameras and away from, you were saying, Will, what's going on? What's he saying to you?
Well, in fact, I didn't have that very private conversation, which I will be having with him today.
Yeah.
Because I had a pre-arranged meeting with him this afternoon, and we'll be holding that meeting at 3 o'clock today. So Will be able to tell me in private what is going on. So I will do. He was obviously, I mean, in a public forum the other day, and I wasn't going to be trying to corner him and push him basically into, you know, giving me the situation. I'll have enough time today.
You will. You'll have
so
time,
I will actually. But I think, in fact, actually, Rowan, there is, and I did say this in other media during the week, is, you know, there is an element of sectarianism that is mixed in with with hate crime here, and I mean that's a very thin line.
Polish, you're Catholics. I think Polish, so. You've got a new saint.
Absolutely,
all that rubbish.
And you know, I mean, and I think, in fact, actually, you know, that can't be ignored, and I mean, it needs to be said. You know, and the fact is that in any case, I always have regarded those two things, sectarianism and hate crime, as very close relations, if not almost, you know, brothers, you know, in all of this.
Increased police patrolling is an obvious one right away, and I think Will Kerr was saying to the folk earlier in the week that they intend to do that.
Yes, and they had been doing that actually in relation to many of the incidents that took place in Sydenham in the earlier part of the year, and they also provided them with security packs, you know, things for doors and windows and stuff like that. Also cameras. They have supplied them with that in some of those particular cases.
Yeah.
So they have been doing things, you know, but you know, it's not fair to be sort of expecting the police to solve this problem. This is not. This cannot be a police issue alone. It has to be a combined, you know, integrated approach. Basically, bringing in government and community and politicians.
You got it. Politicians, the people themselves, the police, the Polish community, everybody together.
Yes.
And so we need a new. A new kind of approach to the whole thing.
Absolutely, I think so. That's right, Ron.
It's going to destroy us.
Well, I mean, if we allow it to continue, yes. And I mean, and funny enough, I said publicly the other day in the City Hall, I said, if we do not do something about this now, it will escalate into a much greater issue. And I said, we need to stop it. And we need to stop it now. You know, and not pussyfoot around, you know, with it. It's serious, and it needs to come to an end.
Are people perhaps, if not closing their eyes, just squinting a little bit and hoping it will go away of its own accord?
Yeah, well, I don't know. I mean, whether people are thinking in those particular terms. But, you know, sometimes, I mean, this sort of thing, you know, doesn't sort of penetrate the consciousness maybe of some of the people that a lot to be doing. And they're saying, yeah, maybe they are adopting something like that. Oh, leave it alone. It'll you know, go down. But the fact is, you know, it might do that, but then it'll come back.
It will, of course.
You know what I mean?
But this is perhaps the greatest challenge you've had since taking up office.
Well, it's one of the challenges. I've had many, and you know, but this I've never known it so strong in terms of the media interest in this particular story over the last number of days. It is seen out there, and I've had many messages of support, you know, from many different quarters over these last days, and I welcome those, and I'm very glad to get them. And you know, I'm going to talk to anybody and everybody that actually can help in this situation, Rowan, and to get it stopped. So wherever that leads me, I'm going.
Would you make sure on your journey that you tell our Polish neighbours that we love them, that the majority of people in this land are good people?
Absolutely, absolutely. And we were speaking about it last week. We celebrated a wonderful event last weekend, Rowan. You had us in here in the studio with Father Christoph and so on and so forth. And we had a full room, we had a full function room, a great evening,
big dinner,
a great joint evening between Poland and Ireland, celebrating one of the great poles of our time, in fact, in history, you know,
Carol,
an international, and he wasn't just a church leader, as I said in my own remarks last weekend, but he was an international figure, who was a leader in the world, and who had made such a huge contribution to the fall of communism. In Eastern, West, and Central Europe.
And let's not forget that.
And that shouldn't be forgotten.
As we now listen to Beethoven's Ninth,
yes,
the European anthem, the Ode to Joy.
Very good, Ron. That's excellent.